a Japanese genre of portal fantasy. It includes novels, light novels, films, manga, anime, and video games that revolve around a person or people who are transported to and have to survive in another world, such as a fantasy world, a virtual world, another planet, future, past time, or a parallel universe. Whether you like it or not, you have either watched a show with this concept or even engaged with this as a fantasy in your mind in a form of escapism. I'm going to be extremely rudimentary and break down every concept, every classification. I want you to understand that this ontological approach to this genre of isekai is coming from a place of love, because one of my favorite mangas I've ever read was called Solo Leveling. Despite the flaws it takes advantage of every trope that the genre would lend it, while simultaneously having it affect its real life as well. In a sense, Solo Leveling isn't going into another world. The world itself is an MMORPG. And I truly believe that that is probably conceptually one of the best ways to approach this genre, because with this foundation laid, we now understand that everything he does or doesn't do will impact him for as long as he lives. Almost like playing a permadeath run, because, well, that's what isekais are, pretty much. You die, it's it. Batum and Gantz handle this concept exceptionally as well. Gantz has a numerous amount of people, once they die, go to this purgatory-like state, and in this purgatory-like state, they have a choice of playing a game. When they play a game, they win, they get access to go back to living life as if they never died, and once in a while they get called back to this purgatory-like state, and they constantly keep winning. They finally get the end prize of... That's the whole point of the show. If you look over and gloss over a dog eating a girl out 10 minutes within the show, or the multiple instances of sexual assault, Gantz is showing that in this other universe that you're in, post-death, you still are massively affected in real life, because if you win the game, you get to go back with the knowledge you had in the game world, killing the aliens. But if you lose a game, you get to die while experiencing extraterrestrial life. Batum, by saying, hey, the game that you like to play in the real world, well, guess what? It's a game for real that literal cycles play for prize money. But regardless, the risk being realistic as well as massively high makes becoming involved with either series such an easy experience that not really focusing on this makes the show itself being empty or bland. Like, what's the point of even involving with isekai? There's no real risk to the main character or their entire supporting cast. Sword Art Online. Now, I love this show. I genuinely feel like it beautifully portrays what I mentioned above without having to solely rely on every person being a deviant spawn from hell. Because that's the only downside I would say Batum and Gantz have, is that they are so heavily leaning into the dark depravity of the humankind that every single second you possibly think of is just either focusing on murder, death, kill, or literal sexual assault. Sword Art Online is wholesome yet so depressing at the same time. This contrast is comparable to that of Clannad, which within itself is marvelous. I'll say this, despite everything that everyone has ever said about Sword Art Online, I challenge you to rewatch it with this new lens. If you take it in this route, take it for what it is instead of taking it for what it could be, it's a greater show to enjoy conceptually. And another thing that Sword Art Online does that I phenomenally love as well is it develops characters fully. Like, their whole arcs based on characters that have nothing to do with Kirito or Asuna. It makes it more of an in-depth series and show than what people give it credit for, especially if you count for this as a point for it. One thing I will say when it comes to the genre as a concept, as I mentioned before, especially with SAO, is you don't have to be the most dark show on the earth to be the best, right? Like, while I like Berserk, it is amazing. It would never be my favorite show because I'm not willing to engage in such heavy content at all times. People will say the opposite about SAO, but come to the same conclusion. However, both shows are monumentally influential and have changed how we approach the genre of fantasy as a concept, especially in anime. So a theme that I want isekais to approach that would vastly improve its overall impact is the main character utilization. If we were to treat Berserk like an isekai, for example, we feel everything he feels, despite only seeing his story being told through fractured flashbacks when extra information is required. Another way to have a main character introduced into a story and have them be the plot, framing them as an unlikable person from the very beginning, and having us, the viewer, understand how they got there in the first place. Berserk starts off this route by making him this brutish, very cold, very calculated serial killer who is an anti-hero based on achieving his own goals, getting revenge, and that and the third. And then the further we learn about it, we go, oh, that's why you're that mad. Oh, that's why you're so upset. Oh, that's why you don't want anybody touching you. Oh, and so on and so on and so on. With today's isekais, we get,
ooh, I'm a loser. I wish I had a better life.
and then the character gets all of their fantasies fulfilled as if this was some sort of hentai or something. Like who watches hentai nowadays? Come on, let's be real. Or you would get someone who's completely opposite of that and completely unaware of everything, and then they accidentally stumble upon this universe, and then it just so happens one of the most important figures in that timeline, and you watch this perfect example of this, you know, because Kagome just stumbled into the alternate universe, and next thing you know, she is literally the next person in line for reincarnation of the most powerful priest in the entire fucking world. Like, come on, what are the chances of even fucking happening? One of the reasons why isekais are appealing to me as a genre as well, and like why I think it can be saved and potentially has the potential, I just said that word twice, to be one of the top tier genres, because it was at one point, is that the concept of going to a different place reminds me of traveling, because I am a travel bug myself, either to another country or to another city in your local region, and just picking up the lore from the locals, talking to the baker, talking to the bartender, talking to the local janitor, and just picking up everything around this place. Gossip, like you're on a follow a Skyrim mission, you just talk to people and you have like 30,000 side missions, right? It's like that type of stuff. Like you're learning more and more about the city, more about its history. You feel more enticed to stay and learn more about it, even though you only been here for like a couple weeks, right? So over time, the main character in a specific instance would develop a cherished relationship with the entire region, despite not knowing that much about them. And as they learn more about the region, we also learn more about the region through them learning about it. And on top of that, we get to see the character fully engage with this new environment that they have been attached to whatsoever. And I love everything about that as a concept, because I watch shows such as Nana or even Death Parade, where instead of heavily relying on the characters being the plot, the characters are interacting with it and the plot keeps moving on whether or not the characters like it or not. This sort of adventurous approach allows for a lot of breathing room for the NPCs to have their own episodes and open brand new entire arcs within a locked region or regions, because it will always be new to both the main character and the viewer, like I mentioned before. In theory, it's supposed to be an open world experience, and I think some shows do it perfectly, and it just is phenomenal. A show that I just started watching like 2 seconds of that came out this month is called The Greatest Demon Lord is Reborn as a Typical Nobody, and the premise itself already sounds somewhat promising. We have someone, as the title suggests, who is already at the peak at the top of his performance, who just got bored of kicking ass, said fuck it, I'm be reincarnated, restarts everything. Reincarnation and becoming the peak isn't a new concept. However, the tiny details that make me sort of interested into watching this full series is what sort of basically sparked this whole entire video. The minor attributes such as magic, stamina, and other magical attunements being introduced to these this early on lets me know that there's going to be an ever-evolving complex power system that is comparable to an RPG game. And so if you ever needed any reference for any fight whatsoever on how strong someone is, you can just boot up an RPG game for 2 seconds and already feel like you have enough background knowledge on the road itself to be immersed with the story. Now, I typed all of this for the show I just mentioned after watching 2 minutes of it. So from what I can tell with reviews, it's not gonna be a really great show. The fact that the very beginning is already just dropping this much information on me, despite not feeling as it is a lot of information at the same time, it is a sort of balancing act that if shows can perfectly attune, then they'll not only have lifelong fans for as long as the series is, but they'll also have fans who are completely immersed into the universe's lore to the point where they can rewatch the entire series with a completely different perspective. For example, Rurouni Kenshin, not an Isekai, but hear me out, we're getting to the concept of power scaling. The very first episode, we follow the Wanderer, Kenshin Himura, or Batosai the Manslayer, who would just slice motherfuckers like they were butter during the warring times of Japan around the Meiji area. However, after coming to the realization that his goals no longer aligned with him being a mercenary for the imperialist government, he abandoned killing and self-fighting in general for about 10 years. Flash forward 10 years, and that's where the entire series starts. And for the next 30 episodes, we're seeing one of the best swordsmen in Japan who just stopped at the peak of his talent, struggle with trying to defend people he loves without fully unleashing his powers and going back to the good old days, or the bad old days for instance, I guess. So one of the core concepts of this plot is him constantly struggling at trying to find inner peace despite still having to rely on the skill of the sword. While defending them, he's constantly being taken advantage of and being stricken because of the fact that the people who fight him would not be able to beat him if Kenshin were to put his mind on focusing on killing them. This scene, for example, happens because Kenshin doesn't have his killer instinct, as this guy mentioned here.
You're not there yet. You're still far from becoming the Batosai you used to be. Unless you kill me, the girl dies.
What this does power scaling wise is show that having the intent on killing can give you massive upper edge on someone in a fight, even if you're lacking in experience or skill. As the show progresses, we see Kenshin on the verge or the edge of becoming the Manslayer and slowly losing his sense of humanity that he gained over the past 10 years of being a peaceful wanderer. And all of this is happening despite his enemies wanting to genocide entire cities. So he has to constantly struggle with that Now, of all that I mentioned there, I was able to strap you into its power scaling system without going to extreme detail about techniques, different weapons, etc., because there are core bare-bone ways to structure said power scaling system to make it a lot easier for the viewers to understand who has upper hand in each fight. In Kenshin, for example, I would say killer instinct, experience, technique, weapon of choice, and agility would be a way to measure the strength between a fighter or another. Now, there are some instances where supernatural powers will be thrown in there, but I'll throw it in technique because it doesn't really explain it as supernatural. Instead, it goes off and saying like this person is so specialized in this field, it just seems like it's supernatural in that instance, right? It's Demon Slayer shit, pretty much. And as we progress through the series, without explicitly telling us all of this, I just dump on you right now. The viewer is able to better understand how the fights in front of them are going down, despite not knowing what the Hiten Mitsurugi ultimate Amakeiru Ryo no Harameki ultimate technique, or the Futawa no Kawami, or the Oniwaban style, double Kodachi, Goho Juji styles are. You don't have to know any of that to know what's going on in every fight. And I feel this is what isekais are strong at because, well, let's face it, that's what they specialize in. Telling a story through a video game narrative or just an entirely different fantasy land that contrasts from the base world that the main character or the cast is coming from. What makes games, more specifically RPGs, interesting is because while it does take a while to finish, it incorporates an entire new universe within our hands that allows us to interact with it by any means necessary. And its flexibility is why the experience is very massively. All of this is due to how complex and vast the power scaling systems are, hence why RPGs are a hit amongst, well, gamers. Now, all this fervorish passion that I have towards isekai and the concept of basically improving them is stemming from the fact that I genuinely to this day still enjoy Inuyasha and Sword Art Online, despite many hardcore anime fans not being into it. It's how implicit the power scaling systems are and how little it uses said power scaling system as a crutch for its plot is what appeals to me. A lot of shonen, One Piece, Naruto, Tokyo Ghoul, Bleach, etc., they rely on their main character constantly getting stronger, and them getting stronger is the whole point of the show because it's based on knowing mostly everything about this universe's power systems to understand the fights within themselves and the main character's progression as well. Because if you don't understand why Ichigo's struggling to fight against the Hollowing, proves that how strong the Hollow transformation is and how strong it would make him if he controls it. If you don't understand that as a concept, you can't understand when he uses it later on in fights. And that's the one problem I have with shonen. If they didn't heavily rely on said fights or even techniques to portray the story of said medium, not only would it be easier to follow, but it would also be easier to watch. Because, for example, if I told you these two phrases with zero context and you had no idea what they were, you would be completely lost. It sounds like I'm talking to you in a different language. So I'm going to prove it to you right now. I'm going to assume that you know nothing about Naruto or The Gray Man. Now, if you know anything about these two shows whatsoever, it can prove to your point that because of how much you had to learn about the information about the sage to get to this point proves that maybe locking some of this information behind 30 kabillion Wikipedia pages isn't as accessible as people think it is. Because Naruto entered Sage mode while having the chakra reserves of an Uzumaki member, that would put him at or at least near Sonin level, let alone him having access to the Nine Tails and being a Jinchuriki. The Gray Man. Despite having access to the most powerful parasite-type innocence as an exorcist, Alan Walker is unable to fully kill Noah because his weapon is used to extract the evil essence within, thus reverting them back to the normal human form. It speaks to his character and mythos because he believes if there is a possibility for redemption, then he will take it even if it means risking his own life to save his mortal enemies, Noah's. Now, does this mean, shonen bad because only nerds can understand? No, but it is a downside of the show in general because it needs you to understand what the sentence meant to go into the final arc of the show at all. Well, in comparison, if I were to do a show such as The Gray Man, it'd be a lot easier to follow despite having the same flaws as Naruto universe because it is also a shonen. Are both of these comparable? Of course not. However, what I was attempting to do was to show two random out of context prompts from different series where the main characters are at or near their prime, just to explain how much you would need to know to engage with the show at the current point. Because The Gray Man uses its power system to help build its overall plot, it's a lot easier to translate and therefore easier to immerse into the universe because of its low barrier entry with its information. While Naruto, on the other hand, requires you to learn an entire thesaurus's worth of lore and elemental powers to grasp the sentence I mentioned above. And I believe isekais are able to tap into the accessibility of RPGs as a concept while being able to be immersive and having an in-depth universe like Naruto has with its thesaurus of literally everything. Then the genre will be top tier for decades to come. Now, does this sound like an impossible feat to accomplish? You know what? I'll be honest here. Maybe. Probably yes. But I believe in isekais. And I think there is a bright future for this genre because Sword Art Online existing is proof enough for me that the next solo leveling is right around the corner. And that's my case as to why I think we shouldn't give up on Isekais. I know Goblin Slayer's first episode or the maximum amount of cringe that Overlord has doesn't really give it a good case for the genre, but it is one of the most rewarding type of shows to experience, especially if it's someone's passion project. I believe in the genre. I am pumping maximum amounts of hopium tanks, I know, but I like what I like. What can I say? I'm sorry guys, I don't know how I trouble, but if I did, it wouldn't matter because my fun video. Good night. Support me on Patreon if you want to support me. Subscribe to my channel, my second channel. I'm gonna put edits to my memes if I make any edits, I don't really know. But let me know if you like this video. I may get back into doing solo reviews. I don't know, it depends on how I'm feeling, honestly. But knowing that I'm back into making videos does feel sort of relieving because I did enjoy and have enjoyed and always will enjoy making videos. Have a nice life, you degenerates.